Mark Stringer is here and Jennifer Poole is here. Both of them are amazing. Jennifer's out first. Many of you will know Jennifer. She comes along here very regularly. She's a super experienced Scrum Master. She is at Leeds Building Society. She's definitely worth listening to. Please give her a very warm welcome.
Well, thank you, Roy. There's a lot to live up to there. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I know probably about half of you. And I'm sure the rest are just here for Mark. So I'll only be about half an hour. But my talk is entitled, Sorry, I'm Not Technical. And it was something that I noticed I was saying probably about 11 years ago. And I started to kind of analyse, why was I saying this? So during this talk, I will go through some of the reasons that I found and why I found it quite powerful to use that phrase. But I think it'll be useful for people either if you are currently working in an Agile environment, or you're thinking about moving into an Agile environment, or you don't work in an Agile environment at all. I think it could span across. So the main theme underneath everything is that Agile is about people. You know, at the heart of everything that we do, about the delivery of the products that we do, there are people, there are humans that are all coming together to build those products and to deliver those products. So that is probably the main theme of what I'm going to talk about. And obviously, I'm sorry, I'm just not technical. So there's going to be no technical content. Okay. So, like I said, a number of years ago, I noticed I was saying, sorry, I'm not technical. And at first, it was a bit of an apology. It was like, you know, you're talking at me and I really don't know what you're saying. But I'm going to keep on going. And what I actually realised is that by doing that, I'm gaining trust. I'm kind of sharing with you that I have a weakness. And that it's okay for you to share with me if you've got a weakness. Engineers, software engineers, have probably got like quite a narrow view of what they are absolute experts at. They're not going to be absolute experts at everything. So we've all got weaknesses. So it was okay for me to have that weakness as well. So when I was saying this phrase, I realised that when people were talking back to me, what they'd actually do is they'd start putting it into layman's terms and breaking it down. And when they did, it was like I could see this light bulb coming up over their heads, and as if to say, this is quite complicated, isn't it? This is quite convoluted. I'm not quite sure why we do that. And it was a real kind of trigger for them to start inspecting why they were doing what they were doing. So it became really, really powerful. So, like I say, it exposes my weakness to you so that you can expose yours back to me or in the company of others. Now, about 20 years ago, I read a book and there was a quote in there and it really resonated with me. It's a lovely book. If you've not read it, I would definitely recommend reading it. It's by Robin Sharma and it's called The Saint, the Surfer and the CEO. And it says the best leaders expose their weaknesses. They're real people and people love them for it. I feel like I've personally worked much harder and more committed to people that, you know, I've trusted, that have shown me that they're a real person rather than a barrier. You know, I don't know if that's the same for everybody else. So, sorry, I'm not technical. Just to summarise it, it builds trust. It empowers people to be open and honest as well. In return, it builds that psychological safety, and as a Scrum Master, we're looking for psychological safety. And the experts start to break those processes down themselves, and they start realising, maybe we need to inspect this a little bit more, maybe we need to change this, maybe we need to think about the flow of this process a little bit better. So, how did I get here? I didn't begin as a Scrum Master. There wasn't a Scrum Master 25 years ago when I started working. So it's quite funny you're talking about COBOL because I'm actually the daughter of a COBOL mainframe programmer. And I used to do my drawings on the printouts from the, the back page where it was playing. Yeah, I did my drawings as a child on those, and watched my father get called out in the middle of the night, and you know the pager going off. Yes, I'm showing my age. And my brother is actually a cloud architect as well, so really just surrounded by technology. However, I set out to not be in technology. This was the last thing that I wanted to do. And I can remember when I was about 16 years old, I was trying to get something to print out on the computer. And it wouldn't print out on the computer. And it kept saying the driver wasn't installed correctly. And I screamed at the top of my lungs, and I still remember, I know exactly where I was. And I said, I will never work in technology. My father takes great pleasure in reminding me what I do for a living now. Like I said, I didn't start out. I started out with the intention that I wanted to help people. I didn't know how. I didn't know how I would do this or what I would do. So I went off to college and I did like a health and social care GMVQ advanced. That then led me on to university. And after university, I did a little bit of my degree, and then I went into all different roles. And then about 11 years ago, I was introduced to Agile ways of working. And at that point, it kind of went, this makes sense now. And all these bits from all my different roles kind of all came together. And I was like, I know what I want to do. So my journey to Scrum Mastery. Now, I don't think there's many Scrum Masters. I could be completely wrong. So if there's any Scrum Masters in here, please let me know if you have been paid to do this. So this is me in the Caribbean. It wasn't last week. It was 20 years ago. And I was a therapist. I was a specialist therapist. At university, I did a complementary medicine degree. I was working in palliative care and decided that I wanted to travel. So I went and got a job in the Dominican. And you're probably thinking, what's this got to do with Scrum Mastery? Well, I had to build a lot of blooming trust within about 2 minutes of meeting somebody for the first time. And because I was a therapist, I wasn't a beauty therapist. I was like clinical aromatherapy. So it was a little bit different from beauty. I would use counselling techniques that I learned at university, coaching techniques. And I started to learn about I learned about humans and how like work-life balance can really seriously impact our health. And it comes into my day-to-day job now of like, looking after people, making sure that they're okay. Because if somebody has a work-life balance or something is stressing them out, they're never going to be able to do a good job. So it's really imperative for me to make sure that people are happy and content within my squads. So I also learned about holism, and holism is where the whole is more than the sum of the parts. And if you think about squad, you have a bunch of individuals, but when they come together and they work as a squad, as a team together, then it's much more effective than just a bunch of individuals all working independently. So can you see the link now? And also there's a lovely quote here that I found, which is, in order to understand why people do the things that they do and think the way that they think, holism proposes that it's necessary to look at the entire person. So that's just reiterating what I'm saying in terms of rather just focus on one aspect. So get that code submitted. We need a PR on that. We need that merged. We need that out the door. Think about everything that person is going through. So that was my journey into Scrum Mastery. How it started. One of the roles, I'm not going to go through every single role that I had. There was quite a few in contract management, commercial management, performance management, loads of things. But one of the roles that I had was I was a business process analyst, and I was asked to look after or look into a utility company's entire process from cradle to grave. So when you identify that a gas main needs to be changed, so within 30 metres of property, you have to replace the old cast iron with a piece of plastic pipe. right through to the barriers being removed from site after the tarmac's been relaid. And I was looking at the entire process. And I was given this tool to use. And I don't know whether or not anybody has used this before. Anyone know what this is? It's blurred because you don't need to know what it says on it. It's called Aris. And it's cloud-based. And it's, I think, one of the most powerful things you can use for business process mapping. And the reason being, you can identify people who are responsible for each of the roles and each of the tasks along the way. You can highlight risks on there at different stages, and then at a click of a button you can turn it into a training guide, you can turn it into a RACER document, into a risk register, all from one workflow that you've mapped. So I find that quite useful and powerful. So back to me mapping processes. So I used to invite people that were involved in each of those processes to come in and spend some time with me and explain to me how this process, what they did in terms of their process. And at first, you can imagine an engineer that was used to digging roads being asked what they do. It was quite defensive. So I had to build that trust straight away, or else I just couldn't do my job. So I was very much like, I'm sorry, I'm not technical. You're going to have to explain things to me. And also, if you tell me where you're annoyed at the process, we might be able to do something about it. And what actually ended up, like one of the things that came out of it was, well, we always did it that way. It's like, okay. So what's quite amusing, which I didn't know until later on, is this lady here, Grace Hopper, who coined the quote, which is the most dangerous phrase in the language, as we've always done it this way, is a COBOL engineer. So it's full circle. But yeah, this is one of my favourite ones. And whenever I hear it, well, we've always done it, I'm like, okay. All right. So I would sit, and I didn't know how to dig a road up. I'd never laid a gas main. I'd never recommissioned a boiler. I had never laid any tarmac and compacted it. I didn't know how to set up a traffic management system. It didn't matter. I needed them to talk me through it so that they were telling me, well, this is a pain in the arse. You know, or I don't know why we do that. So just like the gaffer told me to do it. And by doing that, we could then start mapping it out and we could start putting risks or opportunities. So I would suggest doing this activity, not to document your processes, because, you know, as soon as you document your processes, within a day, they've probably changed. There's absolutely no point in it. But if you've identified that you've got loads of impediments at certain points within your process and things that are slowing you down, sometimes it's really good to visualize it. Because once you visualize it, it's like, oh my God, is that how long it takes? I can remember working with a squad at Sky, and their release process was it seemed to take forever. And I was like, can we document it? Can we like go through it? And they went, yeah, we just need half an hour. I was like, okay, 3 hours. 3 hours it took to write down that entire process. And it literally went from I printed it out, and it went from the top to the bottom. And they just couldn't believe it. They just did things that they didn't even realise that they were doing. And you could see the handoffs. You could see the other teams that they were responsible for. And then engineers would look at the testing thing and go, well, hang on, there's a piece of software. If we put that in there, it automates that entire lot there. And it was that visualisation of that process was just so powerful. So I would highly recommend doing something like that with squads that are probably mature, but you're looking to do that continuous improvement. So just to summarise, so when you go through, you're looking at each thing and you're questioning, okay, how do we improve this? Is this a people thing? Is it a process improvement? Or is it something that we can enhance with technology? So you can also document the risks, any opportunities, and just visualise that process. Think about, can it be simplified? And highlight any dependencies and handoffs and think, can I actually bring that into the squad? Can we do some training with regard to the people that are in there so that we don't have to do that handoff. So you've got your autonomy back into the squad, so you're reducing that handoff and reducing that potential blockage. Okay, so moving on. Funnily enough, after I did that and I became a Scrum Master and a PO, a pseudo PO, I decided that I'd be a project manager. And I went and did my Prince 2 and my practitioner, and I went and worked in a water company this time. So I've gone from gas to water, and then it'll be fizzy water, but yeah. And, joking. And I worked waterfall, and it was fine because the projects that I was working on lent itself to waterfall projects. They were construction projects. They were building things. They had, finite scope, a time when it needed doing, and a cost that you had to get to. So if you're a project manager, the triangle of doom, the iron triangle is scope, time, and cost. And I was fine with that until they gave me an IT project, and I was like, I've got no idea how I am going to do this. The whole company was waterfall, and I was very much like, can I do it agile? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, can I just put it on a Kanban board? Like, yeah, do whatever, as long as you deliver it. So there I got my brown paper, and I did a physical board at the end of the office. And everybody started coming over and going, what is that? What's that ticket? We don't need that. If you do that ticket, it'll upset that ticket. And this conversation started to happen. If you've ever read Phoenix Project, it was that. There was like 250 different change requests where the hippos would just come along and go, I need this. And it'd be like, right, can we just quantify the value of each of these items, please? And that's what we did. We put some value statements against each of them, and we had a look at, has it got a health and safety implication? Has it got a cost? Has it got a reputation? And we started to get them into an order, and we put them into a Kanban process. And then we started a transformation to bring agile ways of working into the whole of the IT department. And in order to help me do that, we brought in some consultants. And these consultants provided some training, and they were called Emergent. And they came along and they proposed the VFQ model. And this probably lives with me to this day, because I find it really useful just to keep myself on track. And it's value, flow, and quality. So everything that I do, I have to think, is this improving flow? Has this got value? And is the quality improving with it? So in terms of value, how do we quantify it? How do we turn that dial slightly? Don't just think about, like the product that you're doing. Think about the meetings that you're in. Is there 10 people in a meeting, which could have been an email? Yeah. And how many people are in there wasting their time when they could be doing something much more valuable? So it goes right down to those kind of levels of value. Is this valuable? And then flow. Flow goes back to that business process modelling. Have you got that flow? Have you got loads of impediments? Have you got loads of things where you've got handoffs, etc.? And thinking about it in a technology line, like a lens, a technology lens, one thing that I find, I don't know whether or not other Scrum Masters would agree with me, but it's how work comes into your squad is just as important as the work that you're working through within the sprint. So I kind of, when I get a new team, I normally sort out like the major things within the sprint, get them going, and then start looking upstream about how this work intake is coming in. Because if I can solve all the or most of the issues before it even lands in the squad's arena, then I can become more predictable. And that's when you're delivering large programs, that's what you need, is that predictability to be able to say, if you come along and give me something that is a large t-shirt size, I can tell you it's going to take about 4 weeks or it's going to take about 12 weeks, and just give leadership some idea. You're not nailing it down, but some idea how long this might take. And then that helps them with the decision of, well, is that valuable? Is that amount of time going to give us the value for that amount of investment? So I also, with regard to refinement and elaboration, I also give that to the squad members. Something that I've done with a couple of squads, and it's worked really well, is that assigning tickets to engineers to do a little bit of research before we even get into refinement, so that they can kind of think about, well, what's the technical solution to that problem? So that we build the tickets with as much information as we can, so that it just flows straight through that sprint. And quality just built in. You know, quality is standard. I don't want to push anybody to a deadline if it means that I'm going to be reducing the quality of the item. So all these three things for me kind of really stuck with me, and it's just so easy, VFQ. So yeah, on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, so just summarising just some of the stuff that I've been through. Aspects of Scrum Mastery that I find really important, and why it doesn't matter that I'm not technical. Because when I'm looking at different processes, I've not got any technical bias. I don't know whether or not I would have written a code a different way. Or I've got more experience than that engineer, so I think it should be done this way. There's none of that conversation. That conversation is for the experts. And the psychological safety and the open communication that I instill within the squads allows them to discuss things. It's not one person's opinion. It's a team that's coming up with that solution. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. We tried it. That was the best that we knew at that point in time. We fail, we go back, we try again, we tweak it, we change it until we find the solution. So psychological safety is really paramount. And I've worked with so many engineers that may be quite introverted, and getting them to talk and come up with solutions and maybe challenge other engineers within the squad can be quite daunting for them. So I've found that having one-to-ones with each of my engineers on a 2-weekly or 4-weekly basis, depending on where they are, really helps them, because if they don't feel comfortable raising something, then I can weave it into the conversation without anybody realising, so that then the issue is brought up, but maybe they don't feel the pressure. And then they learn also that actually there was no comeback. There was nobody upset about Jen raising that. So I feel confident I could raise it next time. So those one-to-ones are really important to build that psychological safety as well. So yeah, just finally, for high-performing teams, just to summarise, I would say focus on the process, improvement and team empowerment. Inspect your processes, ensure your workflow is completely optimised. Teams, you've got to give that psychological safety that it's okay to fail. It's all right, we're not perfect. None of us are. It's something we learn from. It's the only way we learn. You know, I use the example of my child touching a radiator. It's hot, don't touch it. It's hot, don't touch it. It's hot, isn't it? Want to do that again? Obviously, I wouldn't have let him if it was a fire. But radiators, I allow that failure to exist. So it's okay to fail. That's how we learn. Technical choices for technical people who live and breathe the code that they work in. I don't. I wouldn't have a clue what I'm looking at. I can write a good JQL though. Good JQL and a good Excel formula. But that was my performance analyst days. So I hope this has been useful. I hope it's triggered some thoughts, some inspiration, maybe some things that you might want to give a go. I've got a reading list at the end of books that I haven't mentioned, or, you know, I've only mentioned Robin Sharma's, but there's other books as well. So if you want, I definitely would recommend having a look at those ones. But yeah, just create an environment that nobody dreads coming into work on a Monday morning. You know, life's too short. We work too much. There's no point being unhappy. And we can just help each other so that we look after each other. Okay?